Lovelies. If you're looking for a treat to give your kids this summer, this coconut buns is exactly what you need. This coconut buns is gooey, soft inside, unapologetically rich and tasty. It's something my kids love when I make for them, most especially in summer. It's not a regular snacks you have to be serving all the time, but that time you need to balance healthy and unhealthy. This is the time. Summer is the right time. This coconut buns recipe is going to be lovely for your kids in the summer and it's perfect for school lunchbox. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the flour I'm going to use. I always like to sieve my flour before measuring it. And talking about measurement, I use scale to measure everything. So it's going to be in grams. The reason is cup measurement is not always accurate. That's what I used before. As a recipe developer, I've tried both cup measurement and scale measurement, and I realized that it's better to weigh your ingredients with scale. That way, you always get the good result you want. But with cup recipe, you will not always get the good results you want. If you have been wondering, you watch a recipe, that person, you do exactly what you're supposed to do with your recipe, and it doesn't come out very well. It's because number one thing is the measurement, the cup measurement. So in this recipe, I use scale and I'd advise you to go for scale. The next thing we are going to put is our coconut. Desiccated, this is a fresh grated coconut. Desiccated coconut can work in this recipe. However, it will not taste exactly the way it's supposed to taste because the coconut in this recipe give it a kick, the highest kick you will ever ask for. This desiccated, fresh grated desiccated coconut is what gives it that highest kick. The next thing we are going to use is our baking powder. Baking powder is what make this recipe puffy and bouncy. So don't skip that. The next thing we are going to use is salt. Anytime you are making anything sweet, try to add your salt because salt is what enhances the flavor of the sweetness. Then I move to my flavor. Flavor, if I'm baking, I have three constant flavor I use: cinnamon, cardamom, and vanilla. And sometimes I do nutmeg, but these three are the ones I stick to most of the time. In this recipe, I use cardamom. You can use cinnamon, you can use vanilla, you can use nutmeg, but in this recipe, it's cardamom. Then the next thing is to mix them together, let them get to know each other, introduce them, and let it mix very well. The next thing I want to talk about is the sugar. Because my kids does not like too sweet snacks, I don't use more sugar in their recipe. In fact, I don't usually bake with sugar. I stick to date paste. I have the recipe if you want to check it. It's on my website, it's on my YouTube channel. So the sugar I use in this recipe is exactly what my kids are okay with. But if you think your kids love sugary snacks, I will advise you have more 2 tablespoons to this recipe to make it sweeter. And that is it. I'll mix it together. That is it with our dry ingredient. With the liquid, I will only use milk. There are three things you can do with your milk, with your liquid. Number one, you can use water if that's what you have. Number two, you can use coconut milk. And three, you can use buttermilk or laban, as we call it in this part of the world. Buttermilk is equivalent to laban, but what I use in this recipe is laban because that's what I always use to bake or to. I don't use milk, I just go for laban. All right. But if you don't have the laban, if you have buttermilk, you can go for your buttermilk. It's the same thing as laban. And if you don't have this too, my dear, go for milk. Then if you think, I don't have milk in the fridge, I don't have all these three in the fridge, just go for water. Water or coconut milk. I've used everything while I was testing the recipe and they all work very well. So this is the texture you need if you are making a very soft buns. My kids are not fan of rock buns, which we always have in Nigeria. They prefer the soft to the rock because when I was testing this recipe, I made bun, but they prefer this. So I'm sticking to these soft buns. And one thing about this recipe is it grows with my children. I've been making it for them for a very long time. As a recipe developer, I have to try it so many ways to get to the right space before I share it on my social media. So the next thing we're going to do is to rest the batter. If you're going to rest the batter, then you turn to your oil. If you're not going to rest the batter, that means you have to start your oil, heating your oil before you start mixing. But I always like to rest my batter to give you that this softness you're seeing. I rest it for like 3 to 5 minutes. And to test my oil, I will dip my chopstick inside the oil to see if the oil is ready. Once you see those bubbles, that means the oil is ready. And what you're going to do now is to put your heat inside the low onto the lowest heat. Then with the help of ice cream scoop, I'll scoop and drop in the oil and start frying. With the scoop, you can use ice cream scoop. Ice cream scoop is the best equipment you can have in your kitchen to scoop anything. However, if you don't have it, you can use 1 tablespoon. You can use 1 tablespoon to scoop it. But with 1 tablespoon, you have to dip the spoon inside water to drop into the oil very well. And if you don't have these two equipment, lovely, you can use your hand. Just form a ball with the paste, with the batter in your hand and drop it inside the bowl. See, when it comes to home cooking, what we don't want is Pinterest worthy snack. All we want is what our kids will eat and enjoy. Yeah, that's why we are home cook. So just drop it there and use it. The reason I always stick to my my ice cream scoop is because I don't like messy hand when I'm doing things like this. Maybe I'm frying puff or I'm frying the buns. I don't like messy hand. You see me washing my hand often, but I don't want to do that here. So that's why I use my scoop. So to know that the buns is ready, you are going to fry the buns for 5 minutes. But to know that it's ready, if you don't want to go that far, you have to dip your chopstick or fork or anything into one buns, and once it come out clean, that means it's ready. But in this one, I just fry until it's golden brown. That is very easy. Just fry until it's golden brown and you know it's ready. All right. So what I'll do now is fry. I've already fried on the other side and I'll fry the other side of the buns. Let me tell you again that these are to be on a low heat. If you don't put it on a low heat, what will happen is the fry will be golden brown, but it will not be done inside. Believe me, you don't want your children to eat raw bones. Yeah, our buns is ready. I would put it in the tray, let it cool down. Like I said, you can use these buns in their lunch box. You can use it as lunchbox snacks. You can use it as after school snacks. So what I always do, I love making things ahead. So I make these buns ahead, then I'll put it in my storage plate. The reason I use parchment paper in that storage plate is because sometimes it will get wet. Once you put it like that, the coldness of the freezer will make the buns get wet. And once you reheat it, it will be so mushy and kids will not love that. So I always put parchment paper because I use dish to store something in my fridge. You can always use your anything you use to store things in the freezer, you can use that. But I use plates. You can use Ziploc, but if you are using Ziploc, try to deflate it so that it will not the froze blocks will not be on it. I'll put it there and then I'll put a tissue on top of it so any water that will be on top of the cover will not drop inside the plate, and I'll cover it and freeze. Then I'll bring it out and reheat, and that is it. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.